Really neat fight coming up this weekend between a couple of once promising prospects, and normally when you don't fight for a long time and you're a fighter, you don't really get much better, but we'll find out what we get this weekend. We have Joaquim Silva taking on Ricky the Gladiator Glenn. And Matt, it is no longer Rick, we can say that for sure. Another James Lynch interview, so shouts where it's due with All Access MMA. He talked about the fact that when he was a kid and about grade 2, his dad had a girlfriend named Ricky, and that's what forced him to become Rick. But now that he's a man, and he's 32, he's claimed it back. He's Ricky. He's no longer training at a Team Alpha Male. He is out of, and I want to get it right, Absolute Martial Arts and Fitness in Des Moines, Iowa. And for Ricky Glenn, this is a guy that at one point, former World Series of Fighting featherweight champ, he beat Georgi Karkhanyan, which is a win that still holds a lot of water, came into the UFC, and listen, is the record the greatest in the UFC? Kind of. I mean, it's 3-3, but you look at his best win over one Gavin Tucker, who we have to talk about more and more as we will in our main event with Dan Ige, but two guys with statement wins over Gavin Tucker, who's a pretty darn good fighter if you ask such people as, well, Joe Rogan or Craig and Matt Allen. But when I look at this fight for Ricky Glenn, it's really tricky for Ricky, and that's where the jokes will stop with his name, because the 5-on-in, he beats Felipe Nover, one of the best grapplers we've ever seen. He beat Gavin Tucker, but let's go back to that. 4 years and 3 months ago, he beat Felipe Nover. 3 years and 8 months ago, he beat Gavin Tucker. Lost the decision to Bellator's and YouTube fame, Miles Jury. Matt, how long ago was that?
3 years and 5 months ago.
Beat Dennis Bermudez by split decision 2 years and 10 months ago, and lost Kevin Aguilar 2 years and 6 months ago. Had major hip surgery, had to take about a year away from training. He was supposed to come back not that long ago, and we already had a prediction video booked for Ricky Glenn's return to the octagon. He's supposed to take on one Carlton Minus back in December, forced out due to COVID. Him and a coach had both contracted it. So now we're here with Ricky Glenn. For Joaquim Silva, this is a guy that made it almost to the finals of the Ultimate Fighter Brazil. He ended up losing to the eventual winner, Glaico França. But you look at it so far, knocked out Andrew Holbrook. But the other trouble for Joaquim Silva, he beat Andrew Holbrook almost 5 years ago. Beat Reza Madadi by split decision where
Didn't look good in that fight.
He had to come out in interviews and say, well, I was the guy that tried to finish him, so that's why I should have won the fight. Lost to Vince Pichel by decision. Nothing wrong with that. Beat Jared Gordon by knockout. That was 2 years, 5 months ago in a fight of the night where Jared Gordon dropped him at the start. He dropped Jared Gordon at the start or the end of the first round. Second round was wild. Third round, he gets a finish. And lost to Nasrat Hakparas in one of the first prediction videos we ever did on the channel. It's just weird to look at these two guys where Silva's been away for such a long time, but there's not much in the room of news or injuries out there on him, and he looks like an absolute unit over on the Instagrams. I'll post a picture, but he doesn't look much different than the picture that we have in front of you right now. For Joaquim Silva, he just goes balls to the wall from the first second of the fight. Ricky Glenn, a little bit more technical, but I have, honest to goodness, no idea what we're going to get. And if you chalk it up on the Fight Night Picks scoreboard, this is a garbage fight.
It's kind of wild that these guys are in a do-or-die fight against each other, because I'm going to have to quote Chael Sonnen to talk about something that you had alluded to. You don't get better at something by not doing it, and both of these guys fit that profile, because for Joaquim Silva, there were high hopes. Like, you're black belt in BJJ, you've got decent power in your hands, like, there's some skills there that we can work with. If there was anybody else with those attributes, you'd be like, wow, he's what, 15-10? But no, the problem with Silva is he loads up so much on his punches, and he's slow because of it. That's my problem. In MMA, speed kills. Speed is probably the most important attribute a fighter could have. And Joaquim Silva is slow. Like, slower than molasses on a cold winter's day, to quote our great-grandmother. She was great, I guess. Anyways, for Ricky Glenn, first of all, it's weird that you add the Ricky later on in your life, but besides the fact, and also, could his dad not have found any other woman with any other name than the same name as
Matt,
his son?
Don't deny 80s love,
I'm not.
Don't make fun of a man's name.
This is going to be a really interesting fight, because for Rick Glenn, where he has the most successes, he stands in the pocket and lands with volume. But the only chance Joaquim Silva is going to have to land on Ricky Glenn is to land when Glenn's in that pocket. Because for Glenn, the land where he will have the most success is the area where he'll be in the most danger. Because I don't don't really see Joaquim Silva as the type of guy who's going to go out there and take Ricky Glenn down. He doesn't really have just the pure wrestling to be able to shoot a double leg and take Ricky Glenn down. Glenn has A, too wide of a base, and B, really good takedown defense at that for a guy like Silva to go in there and consistently get takedowns on him. I do think if Silva is able to get on top of Glenn, then that's a completely different story. I do think he could dominate him if he gets that top position. My issue is I just don't really know how he gets that top position, and there's a lot of things to like from Silva when I look at this fight, but at the end of the day, aside from the question marks I have around the hip surgery, I do like the takedown defense and the volume striking of Ricky Glenn. This fight on paper could be really fun or could be terrible. Like you said, it's a garbage fight because it could just be so many different versions of itself.
And that's the hard thing. Like, if you were going to try and put your hard-earned money on this one, I personally would stay away because Joaquim Silva is a forever lightweight. Ricky Glenn moving up to 155, and he talked about it. I don't want to put my body through the weight cut anymore. The last time out, and he said it in the interview, All Access MMA, James Lynch, credit where it's due, he said that, listen, if I ever missed weight, I was going to move up. He missed weight his last time out, 148.5. So now we see him at 155. Rejuvenated, ready, training at home again in Iowa. Lovely place. Never been there. No, it's a joke. I've been there before. But when I look at this fight, it really is tricky to try and figure it out. So again, both guys are only 32, but they've been off for so long. If you look at the odds, Ricky Glenn opened a minus 135. He's now a minus 104 or thereabouts on best fight odds. For Joaquim Silva, open a plus 115. He's a minus 119 favorite right now. And if we have a look at Tapology and the votes, it's a surprise to you, surprise to me, but let's read them out. 695 total votes, 62% with Glenn, 88% by decision, 38% that have Silva, 68% by decision. Again, a lot of people are seeing a decision out of this one. Is it going to be the volume, I assume, against the power out of Silva? And just for me, again, full power, overhand right, bit of a low kick, left hook, good submission defense. That's what I see out of Joaquim Silva. Is that enough to win him this fight?
I don't think it is, personally. I do think the volume striking of Ricky Glenn will be enough for him to win this fight. Again, I worry about his movement a little bit, especially after the hip injury, because if he isn't able to get in and out of the pocket consistently and fast, then I do think Silva might be able to land some counters on him. But other than that, I'm going to trust the offense of Ricky Glenn moving forward on Joaquim Silva, then the off chance that Silva does catch him with a big shot on his way in.
Yeah, it is a really, really tricky one for me. So, like I said, wouldn't necessarily have it on my card. You look at it for Silva, out of his 11 wins, 7 of them are by knockout, but he hasn't fought in the longest time. He hasn't knocked anybody out since Jared Gordon, but who's to say that he couldn't? Because I think in a fight like this, he could definitely cause a lot of damage for Ricky Glenn out of the losses. Again, Miles Jury, Aguilar, decision, Dennis Bermudez, decision, Tucker, decision. So maybe you do like that decision prop in a fight like this. I do like the volume striking of Ricky Glenn as well, but this is another one. I want to see both guys on the scale because Silva, been out for a long time, so is Glenn, up a weight class. This is one especially that I'm saving for question mark kicks. But at the start of the week, I've got Ricky Glenn. If I haven't made it clear enough, I don't have a good read on this one. But I'm going Glenn off of prior fights. And again, I do like the track record and the fact that he has almost double the amount of fights as Silva.
Let's get into it. Yeah, no, I like Ricky Glenn. I just think, like you had said, his volume should be able to overmatch any of the power that comes back his way from Silva. I like the reach advantage that he has, too, because it's weird. Like you had said, for Silva, he's jacked for lightweight, but he's not the biggest guy frame-wise. Like, the fact that Ricky Glenn is moving up from featherweight, I still expect him to be the bigger fighter on Fight Night, which is kind of wild to think of. So, I do agree with you. I do like Ricky Glenn.
Matt, both of us going with the blast of the past. We're going with the Gladiator, Iowa's own Ricky Glenn to get the win. Can't wait for this fight and the entire card. You got another great fight at 145 pounds up at the top. Dan Ige challenging the Korean Zombie. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.